Alfred Hitchcock once said, "To make a great film, you need three things: the script, and the script." Considering he was possibly the greatest filmmaker of all time, it's easy to surmise he knew what he was talking about. Making a film is a collection of many different disciplines and elements, all being brought together to create what we see on the screen. But the starting point, the very bedrock of the entire process, is the script. And while it is possible to make a bad film out of a good script, it is impossible to make a good film out of a bad script. That's why it is so important, before you start thinking about cameras or costumes or casting or clever effects, you make sure that your script, that blueprint for everything else that will follow, is as strong as it can be. Even for a show as simple as this, the script is absolutely paramount. I learned that the hard way. But before you can get a script finished, you have to start it. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. So I'm going to show you a little technique that I use that turns the stream of consciousness I call an idea into an actual writing plan. This is a little exercise I like to call Draft Zero. Draft Zero is the shortest, messiest, most incomplete and nonsensical version of your script that you will ever write. This is a version of the script that you will never, ever show to anyone. Actually, you'd probably be absolutely mortified if anybody did read it. But it is also the version of the script that's going to be the most fun to create. Here's how it works. Now, let's assume that you've already got an idea that you want to write about. Coming up with an idea is a whole different process. We'll go into that later. Let's start with that perennial boogeyman of the creative mind, a blank page. Use whatever preferred manner of writing you have. Pen, pencil, keyboard, Sharpie marker, doesn't matter. Whatever makes you happy and you're most comfortable with. But choose a medium that can keep up with the ideas that are going to be pouring out of your head. Write down the genre and the shortest and most basic description of the film. And I am not talking about a log line. Screw those things. That can come later, all right? I mean short and nasty. Something like vampire love story, or Macbeth with puppets, or, I don't know, gorillas versus cheerleaders. Ooh. Copyright. Now this is where the fun part kicks in. Start writing. Don't start writing the script. Don't start with fade in. You're not there yet. Just start putting thoughts down on paper. Every single idea or thought you had about this story. Don't worry about prose or clever descriptions. Don't worry about trying to make it chronological. Don't worry if none of these ideas are properly fleshed out. Just write. Got a great idea for a personality quirk for the lead character? Great, put it down. Got an exciting sequence you want to include? Put it down. Got a funny line of dialogue? Put it down. Every single tiny bit of inspiration you have about this story, write it all down. Tell your story the way a 7-year-old would. Okay, maybe not that kid. Now, none of this has to make logical sense. You don't have to explain how one moment fits into another or come up with clever transitions from scene to scene. Hell, technically, you're not even writing at this point. It's all just creative jazz. Now, you're probably thinking, but if I have all this stuff in my head, why bother writing it all down? There are a few reasons. First up, you're human. You'll forget. And I don't care how incredible your memory is. You will forget.
Car keys.
Yeah, that's a private joke. I'll explain it later. Secondly, brilliance is really fleeting. You may have a sequence in your head that you've thought of a dozen times over, but on one of those occasions, you'll come up with a variation that blows you away. You'll be so excited about this one tiny change that just allows everything to fall in place. And I swear to you, the next time you think about that sequence, that moment will be gone.
But I'm really not very happy about this.
You won't even remember that you came up with it. Do yourself a favor and get that spark of genius into hard copy. Lastly, and this is the most important, for some reason, the very act of writing an idea down generates more ideas. It never fails. You'll write something down that will inspire something else, which will develop something else, which will answer something else, and so on. Now, this whole exercise only needs to be about 2 to 4 pages long. If it's longer, great. You'll have a deeper well of ideas you can draw from. And do not censor yourself. No idea is too silly or over the top. Just because you're writing it down here doesn't mean it has to make it into the final script. But ideas are like umbrellas. You'd hate to need it and not have it. Once you have completely exhausted every single thought you have, calm down, take a breath, wait for your heart to stop frantically beating. Then go through and look at what you just created. It'll be a goddamn mess. It'll be a bunch of crazy randomness scribbled out in a whirlwind of creativity. Go through it, read it, carefully, slowly. You will very quickly realize what works, what doesn't, what ideas you want to explore, and what ideas you want to abandon. And then start building your story around all the beats you've just created. If you're the type to write an outline, or if you like writing log lines, this is the point where that comes into play. Lastly, when you get stuck into your script proper, keep a copy of your draft 0 nearby. You may find yourself stuck at some point, unable to fix a story beat, not realizing that you already solved it before you even started. But more importantly, when you hit that point when you're exhausted by the story, when you just can't break that third act twist, or you've just had enough and you want to quit, give good old draft 0 a read. Let the crazy enthusiasm you had when you were coming up with this stuff wash over you. Remember how much you loved inventing all this weird and wild stuff, and how great it would be to get all of that out and into the world. And then just use that motivation to create an 80 to 120 page screenplay that you can then use to entice an agent to sign you up. They can then sell your script to some big name production house, who then coerce some major league celebrities to help turn it into a big budget feature that will garnish all manner of praise and admiration, make you fabulously wealthy, and leave you with only the problem of having to draft your award speech.